Today, we dive into the story of Frank Matthews, a man known as Black Caesar. Rising from humble beginnings in the segregated South, Matthews built one of the largest heroin empires in American history. At its peak, he rivaled with Italian Mafia, moved tens of millions of dollars in narcotics, and lived a life of unimaginable luxury. But in 1973, he vanished. Nobody, no arrest, no answers. This is the life, the rise, and the mysterious disappearance of Frank Matthews. Frank Larry Matthews was born on February 13, 1944 in Durham, North Carolina. He grew up in a working-class black neighborhood, raised mostly by his grandmother after his father died when Frank was just 4 years of age. Durham at the time was deeply segregated. Jobs were scarce. Opportunities for young black were few. And like so many who would later walk the path of the street, Matthews found himself drawn towards quick money. In his teenage years, he was first arrested for stealing chickens. Yes, chickens. That arrest set him on the radar for local authorities. But rather than turning away, Frank leaned in. By his late teens, he was running illegal gambling operations, card games, number rackets, a small hustle that gave him an early taste of cash flow and the discipline of managing street money. In the early 1960s, Matthews left North Carolina for Philadelphia, and eventually he ended up in New York City. Why New York? Because New York was the epicenter of the drug trade. If you wanted to make it big, you had to be there. By the mid-1960s, heroin was flooding Harlem and Brooklyn. The Italian Mafia controlled much of the supply, but cracks were beginning to form. African American and Latino dealers were hungry and independent. Matthews saw the opportunity. At first, he dabbled in gambling operation, numbers, and loans sharking. But soon, he was introduced to heroin distributions network. That's when his life and his legend truly began. Frank Matthews had something unique. He wasn't just a street hustler. He had vision. He understood wholesale distribution, logistics, and most importantly, how to network. By the late 1960s, Matthews was working directly with Cuban suppliers in Florida, bypassing the mafia. He began bringing in heroin and cocaine in bulk. What set him apart was scale. He didn't want to be small at the time. He wanted to be the supplier. By 1970, Matthews was distributing heroin across at least 21 states. From New York to Philadelphia to Atlanta to Miami, and even as far as west in Texas. And with that came the money. Tens of millions of dollars were flowing through his hands. He purchased mansions, luxury cars, and jewelry. He threw lavish parties, often paying for flights and hotel for the entire entourage. Unlike the mafia bosses who tried to keep a low profile, Matthews flaunted his wealth. He wanted everyone to know who he was. Frank Matthews earned the nickname Black Caesar, a nod to his ambition and his ability to outmaneuver rivals. But power came with enemies. The Italian Mafia resented his independence. Law enforcement was baffled by his reach. Even other Black and Latino dealers feared his growing dominance. One FBI agent later described him as the most powerful Black drug kingpin in the 70s. By some estimates, Matthews moved as much as $100 million worth of heroin during his reign. To put that into perspective, that was mafia-level money, and he did it outside of the control. But no empire lasts forever. By 1972, federal agents began tightening the net. They launched a massive investigation into Matthews, tapping phones, flipping associates, and tracing shipments. Matthews was indicted on drug trafficking charges and ordered to appear on court. But Frank had other plans. In June of 1973, he skipped bail. He withdrew roughly $200 million in cash, took his girlfriend, and disappeared. To this day, no one knows for sure what happened to Frank Matthews. Some believe he fled to Africa using false passports and international connections. Others says he went to South America, where the drug trade was booming. There were darker rumors too, that the mafia had killed him. That is, his own people betrayed him. Or that corrupt law enforcement officers helped him vanish in exchange for a cut of his fortune. What makes his story unique is that, unlike so many other drug lords, Matthews was never caught. He wasn't murdered on the streets. He wasn't betrayed in prison. He simply disappeared. Frank Matthews' story lives on as one of the great American mysteries. One on the other end, he was ruthless drug trafficker, responsible for spreading addiction and destructions in Black communities across America. But on the other, he represented defiance, a man who broke free of mafia control, built a multi-million-dollar empire, and vanished without leaving a trace. To this day, the FBI still considers him as a fugitive. He will be in his early 80s now, if he's still alive. Frank Matthews, the kingpin who became a ghost. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this deep dive into the story of Frank Matthews, the man they called Black Caesar, be sure to like, subscribe, and share this video, and let us know in the comments, what do you think really happened to him? Did he escape with millions, or was he silenced forever? Thank you.